Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Still Becoming. Hope you're doing well out there. As we touch on the episode today, titled "You Don't Have to Earn Your Way Back," I find that this is a kind of topic that gets I think overlooked a lot of times when people are injured. You yourself out there might be injured and thinking I got to rush back, as well as, maybe you're coming out over an illness or something, that you're just feeling like "Ah, I'm losing time, I'm losing time." And, that can be very tough, can be very challenging to relax and, kind of tell yourself, just pump the brakes, ease back. For me personally, this week in general, it's the start of the week. It's Monday, August 4th, or Tuesday, what is it? 3rd, August 4th. So yesterday, just coming back a long, exhausting weekend from doing floors and kind of just helping around the house. My father-in-law, bless that man, amazing at doing the floors. The rest of the job for us, my wife and I and our kids, was really just putting things back in place, which still wasn't so easy, and also tearing apart the fun part, destruction. But as we go into the episode here, I just kindly remember, remind yourself that it's okay. You don't have to earn your way back. I was a little sick yesterday and, felt like, okay, I did my workout this morning. The environment's been kind of crummy outside. And so I had to run inside on our treadmill. And, I was thinking, like, do I do weights? I'm not feeling very good. And I just thought to myself, you know what? No, I don't need to do weights. I don't need to rush back, just let things come back. I'm in the middle of a build up for my marathon, but again, your body still is going through some work even when it's not currently showing visible signs. And so, that being said, I getting into the episode now, why do we do this? Why treat recovery like a race? That moment we're injured or sick, we immediately start asking, when can I get back to normal? Or how fast can I rush this process to get back? It's never how do I heal well? Um, and so I think that's something that gets skipped over a lot, and it's something I want to talk about. I want to talk about how people fear losing strength, fitness, momentum, or identity. As runners, we think I'm losing everything I've worked for. If you've been out for a day or, you've been out for a weekend, you've injured yourself and had to miss a week, that it's not like that, your body isn't trying to erase months and years of work. It's trying to protect itself, long enough so you can keep going for years. And I think when you rush back, you destroy that foundation and you find yourself getting more injured, little injuries here and there. One workout doesn't prove your back, just like one week doesn't prove your back. Healing isn't linear. It's not this straight line, this 5K as well, where like you just had to get to that point, watch out for the hill. Some days you feel amazing. The next day you might feel stiff, or tired again. That doesn't mean you've gone backwards. It means you're recovering. I will say and touch on this, like we'd finish those floors and by Sunday I wasn't getting much sleep. And I just, I felt tired. I had to go to sleep, take a nap on Sunday while they finished up for about, an hour almost. And so it was just one of those things that I just couldn't make it anymore. And that kind of started this process, I guess, where my body was just kind of going downhill. And yesterday was the kind of like, here's whatever's going on with me. And, I just wasn't feeling great. Feeling kind of yucky and, making some bathroom trips. Sorry to get detailed a bit there. You fill in the blank. But, it was just hard. I hadn't slept very well and, I wasn't stressed about anything necessarily. I mean, yeah, the floor was going to get done. I would say I was more stressed about that a few weeks ago when it was sort of dropped on us. But again, I will say it was not as stressful as I thought it was going to be. And I really wasn't feeling like this was a huge drag. It's just, it's exhausting. Anybody of you out there that's done construction on your house or, had to do makeovers on things, you can definitely, relate to how hard it is and you're trying to keep up with training in a marathon or maybe a performance you're trying to get ready for. It's just hard. It's big life stress that, we don't get to decide, how immediately how the body's going to react to that. Sometimes we can limit the damage, but overall, it's really just trying to find your rest points, find your nutrition points, and if you fall behind, you get sick like I did, then you have to tell yourself, well, let's take it little by little. Let's do the big thing for me, which is get some sleep and get some nutrition, and then let's get a run in. And then for me, kind of the strength part is the bottom right now for getting ready for this marathon. I do some PT stuff in the mornings before I go out and run. So that kind of helps a little bit. But, in terms of all of it, yeah, the strength is really nice. I think the PT stuff helps more than that. Um, but, when you're recovering from even the smallest illness, you have to cut out something for a couple days. And, tomorrow we'll see how I feel. Wake up with more energy and I think, hey, all right, let's keep rolling into it. Because for me, Friday is my big workout of the week. And so I need to be ready for that. That's, it's today isn't going to make a huge difference. Tomorrow's not going to make a huge difference. You just get out and, run in my case. But if you decide that I want to prove something on a day like this, that, you can definitely make your illness worse. And so it's just one of those things. It can feel boring when you're like, I'm ready to do this. But you just have to understand that, again, recovery isn't linear, healing isn't linear. And so, one of the hardest parts isn't physical, it's trusting your body again. Maybe after an injury, you wait for the pain, or you just feel that pain every step. After being sick, you're constantly checking your breath and heart rate. Is this normal? You're trying to find, positive things to relate to check experiences of like, are we there? Am I there? Is this normal? Or you're just blasting through workouts and saying, I'll tough it out, and that one's not the right way to go about it. The idea of making little checks, it doesn't seem heroic, but those little checks, they add up over time and they can make you feel like you're gaining a little bit more confidence here and there. You're feeling like your body is coming around. And so, I will say I know you're excited out there. You're back if you're returning from illness or injury, and I know you want to prove something. But the strongest athletes I've met aren't the ones who rush back. They're the ones who were patient enough to still be healthy 6 months later. Your body isn't asking you to prove yourself. It's asking you to partner with it. It's asking you to, can we at least still take it easy? I get you got a lot of energy. It's our first day back. Let's not shoot for the top end of the mileage or let's not shoot for the top end of practice, Let's let's just do so, as if this was a breeze. Let's think of today as just being easy and let it be that. No reason to overanalyze what you were doing or how to do it. This is sort of that reminder of like, guess what? You are now healthy enough to do the thing that you have such passion for. And remember, you're not falling behind. You're just laying the foundation for everything that's coming next. And so I want to challenge you that next time you're coming back from an injury, you don't rush it. You maybe just do, if you're training for a marathon in my case, you just do the run the first day, and you do the lower end of it, of the mileage, or you're rehearsing and you normally rehearse for an hour. Maybe just do 50. It's 10 minutes is really your body's not going to know 10 minutes being the difference. So, I just want to let you know, remember this mostly out of everything that I always come back to. You are still becoming, and you are the only one stopping you. I'll see y'all next time. And if you're enjoying this, remember you can follow along on Instagram at stillbecoming26. And there you'll find my journey, my ups and downs. And, my, frustrations. So I'll see y'all next time and let's go get it. Bye.